Welcome to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes. In this video, I'm going to tell you why HR can't relate to older workers. And I know some of you out there are probably saying, we don't need to be told that, Lou. We already know why they can't relate to us, to people who are basically over 50 years old. And you may be even thinking it's age-related. Well, I'm going to tell you that's only part of the story. I'm going to give you the rest. And that, my friends, that's up next right here on Over 50 TV. Welcome back to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes. And before the break, I said what I'll be doing is telling you why HR can't relate to older workers. And yeah, some of you are going to say, hey, we know already, Lou, we know it's age. Others are going to say, hey, we really don't give a damn. We don't care why they can't relate to us. Well, the truth is there's many, many good reasons why you should care, why you want HR to be able to relate to you. But let me go ahead in this video, and I'm going to give you 4 reasons why HR cannot relate to older workers. Before I do that, though, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to ask, consider subscribing to Over 50 TV. Number 2, if your next big career move is launching a side hustle, well, consider subscribing to my new YouTube channel. It's called Side Hustle Rules. On that channel, what I do is I share my business experience. What I try to do, I always try to do, is let you know that you've got options. You don't have to, if you don't want to stay in the corporate world, work for someone else, launch a side hustle, maybe you can turn it into a full-time money-making business. Well, let's get on to this video. So let me give you the 4 reasons why HR can't relate to older workers. Before I give you that information, though, let me tell you where I got the information from, because I didn't pull it out of thin air. What I did is I did my research, which I always do. I found a report from a company called Namely. And Namely's report was very, very interesting because what they did is they looked at their database of over 1,000 companies. Those companies represented over 200,000 employees. And what they did is they gathered that information and they put together a report that I think is very comprehensive. And let me tell you what they say here about the report. They say our findings cut through the stereotypes to paint a more vivid picture of the individuals central to today's workplace, HR professionals. So yeah, they did a report, and I think looking at the data, it looks fairly comprehensive to me. I don't know how scientific it was. I know that they just they went through their database, they gleaned this information, and I believe from what I could see, it sure makes sense to me. So let's talk about the first reason why HR can't relate to older workers. And that first reason, as some of you have already guessed, does have to do with age. The average HR professional, according to the Namely report, the average age is 35 years old. That's the overall average age. Non-managers are 33 years old. I know many of you will disagree with that. Myself, I'm also really looking at that thinking 33, it seems to me that age, the age should be and probably is a bit younger than that. But let's go with Agely's report. They say the average age of a manager is 39. So when you see this information here, and when you see how young the staff is, the HR staff is, at least on average anyway, yeah, it is difficult for them to relate to a person who's in their 50s or 60s. Imagine sitting across from an HR professional when you're 50 years old or 55 years old, and you're looking at a person who's in their 20s or maybe early 30s, and you know that they are dictating your life. Basically, they have a say-so over your life. Now, here's what it says about age. In the Namely report, they say an HR team that sits on the generational board is well positioned to understand and better provide for the full range of employee needs. Well, the average HR person is not sitting on that generational border. They're nowhere near the age of 50, 55, or 60. They're nowhere near that age. They're not sitting on any generational border. There is a big, huge gap. So there's no wonder. You can't blame them. You really can't blame them because they are so far removed from that age that there's no way they can relate to an older worker. Another reason why HR professionals can't relate to older workers has to do with training. or should we say lack of training? And this one will actually make a lot more sense when we get to number 3, which is tenure. But let's stick with number 2 for now. And here's something that the Namely, I keep saying agely, I mean namely, the Namely report says. It says this. It says odds are that most people don't pursue an HR career to find fame and fortune. Instead, according to what we've heard from many HR professionals, or just many professionals, you might unexpectedly fall into the HR field. So they go to school, the younger people who become HR professionals, and again, I always want to put that word in quotes, professionals. They go to school, they're not looking to become HR folks. They didn't study it. There's no training, or they didn't go through the training according to this Namely report. They just fall into that position. So there's no real vested. I'm going to say vested and use that word kind of carefully, but there's no vested interest. They don't have a real interest. They're not considering that their future is going to be in that field. And again, I'll explain this even more in the next reason here. But yeah, training or lack of training is certainly a reason. If an HR professional, a young person, 33 or even 39 years old, is sitting across from somebody, unless they've got a few years in the business and got some experience, they are basically thrown into this position. So yeah, once again, I'm going to say this. Yeah, we can look at an HR person and say, yeah, we don't like them, or we do like them, or they don't understand us, or they do understand us. But the bottom line is, in my opinion, how could they understand us people who are over 50 years old? They don't have the training, they don't have the knowledge, and they certainly don't have the experience. The third reason HR professionals can't identify with an older worker has to do with tenure. And I said that tenure, this one, number 3, does tie into number 2, which was training. And let me explain what I know, or what I found out about tenure when it comes to an HR professional. And I'm going to read some of what I have here just to kind of give you an idea. The average HR tenure, the overall average is 2.63 years. Non-managers, 2.21 years. Managers, on average, they stick around in HR for 3.49 years. When you think about this age range, or I should say this tenure or lack of tenure, you and I probably have a barber, or maybe you've got a hairstylist, or maybe you know a waitress or a waiter somewhere who you've known longer than you've known your HR professional. The fact is, they don't stick around very long. You can't build a relationship with them. They don't understand you. They don't understand themselves. They probably don't even understand the position that they're in. Now, it says here something, and I thought this was interesting, about why they don't stick around. It says, if HR departments are understaffed, under-resourced, or seen as purely administrative rather than a voice at the table, it's likely that individual representative, meaning the HR person, will look to transition to other more people-centric businesses. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a reason they leave. They don't feel like they've got support from the C-suite, from the corporate, from their bosses. So they're looking at this job and saying, hey, I don't have a voice. Now, it says something else, too, which I found very interesting. It says, as HR teams grow in size, their individual employees' tenure trends lower. HR teams with 1 to 4 employees have an average tenure of 3.24 years. Those with 40-plus HR people, like I know people at Target, HR people at Target. I know employees at Target. I know people at Kohl's, some of the retailers, some of the grocery stores, just because of my background in being in that industry. I know it says here that their average age is just over 1 year at the company. My dog walker. I know my dog walker longer than I know, or you may even say the same thing, longer than you know the HR professional at your job. Yeah, tenure's definitely a big reason. There's no way you can know, or you will know, your HR professional when they're coming and going. That door is opening and shutting, and there's always a new one coming in, and an old one leaving, and that old one isn't too old. So yeah, tenure is a big reason why HR professionals, and again, I quote that word, why they can't relate to older workers. Okay, now we've talked about 3 reasons why HR can't, won't, isn't going to relate to older workers. We talked about the fact that there is age, younger folk in the HR department managing HR. We talked about training or lack of training. We talked about tenure or lack of tenure in the job. But here's number 4, and bear with me on this, please. Number 4 is age bias. Now, when I say age bias, what I'm thinking about is the Namely report, and they were talking about the importance of diversity in the workplace. And when they talk about diversity in this Namely report, they're actually talking about race. They're talking about race, and there should be more diversity when it comes to having minorities in the HR department. I'm Mexican American. My mom's Irish. I totally understand and appreciate diversity in the workplace. But I also want to say I don't understand why we can't have more age diversity. And here's what Namely says should be done when it comes to diversity. And I ask, why don't they say this when it comes to age, hiring people who are older in HR, as I mentioned? Namely acknowledges that similar to me and you, similar to me bias starts from the top down, and HR is modeled for the rest of the company. And Namely says to buck the trend, HR should commit to proactively tapping into new and diverse networks such as universities and community centers to connect with candidates that may not come through typical recruiting channels. So Namely is there as an advocate for diversity in the HR department, but not once does Namely mention we need to or they need to. HR should recruit older workers for HR to work in HR, as I mentioned. So to me, yeah, age bias is a real issue. So the challenge for you and me, the challenge for us, the challenge for older folks who are looking for a good career, looking for a better job, the challenge is we have to do the things to get that better job. Make sure your cover letter is great when you're sending it out. I've got a recent video I published on cover letters. I'm going to be doing a new video on resumes. I'll be giving an example of a resume I created for one of my clients. I really love you to see that video. I also talked recently about CareerFitter, which is a really cool career aptitude test that you can take. It's a free one. I've got a link in the description box. I happen to be working with this company in a fashion. So when I recommend it, I'm recommending that you go with the free one. If you want to go ahead and you want to pay for the premium one, that's totally up to you. I think you can totally get by with the free one. But the point is, we got to work harder. We got to work smarter. If we want to get that job, we have to overcome the things that I've mentioned here. We have to overcome this age bias, this age discrimination. Of course, you're going to say, yeah, training. They don't get the training. I can't blame HR. It's hard to blame HR people when they're so young and they don't have that training. They don't have it. They got the best job they're ever going to get. The pay is $76,000, if I remember right. I'm looking at $75,000 as the average non-manager salary. Great pay. Why would you ever leave that job? But they do. So once again, all I'm going to say is we got to work harder. We got to work smarter to get that job. I've just given you 4 reasons why HR cannot relate to older workers. It's up to us. It's up to us to change their perspective. Well, that's all I got for you today, folks. I want to thank you for watching this video. It went a little bit longer than I actually intended it to. When it goes to the cutting room, to the editing room, I'm hoping that we can reduce it a little bit in terms of length. But regardless of that, I really hope that you found value in this video. Now, I will say once again, if you would consider subscribing to Over 50 TV. Number 2, we definitely have a new YouTube channel. It is called Side Hustle Rules. I created it for people who are looking at their next big career move as starting a side hustle or a business. You're going to want to subscribe to that channel. Well, that's all I got for you today, folks. I hope you have a wonderful day. And as I always say, I look forward to talking to you again soon.